Right. It's good to see you guys this morning. Welcome, welcome. So in honor of the Advent season, we're working through the book of Revelation. Nothing screams birth of Jesus in a manger in Bethlehem more than Revelation chapter 17 and full out into the world global warfare. So, yeah. But it is good to see you guys today. Good morning, good morning. I hope you're well. It's a little chilly out there today. It was a little chilly this morning, and I was clearly not layered enough. And so all morning I've been a little chilled, and so this morning in the service I'm doing this, trying to get my hands warm. Preaching with cold hands doesn't work, you know, and like you're trying to make a point and you're shivering. That's not good. That's not good. So, but I'm warming up a little bit. And yeah, I'm really thankful. The decorations have turned out great. Yesterday's work day I thought turned out great. Lots of people came out and we did all kinds of things got accomplished. The trimming of the bushes all the way around the building, really hopeful. The front of that building over there, a bunch of projects got done. And I didn't do anything. I mean, I showed up and talked and said, yeah, that looks good. But in my defense, anytime I've been involved with anything construction related, what they'll do is send me to Home Depot with a list of items, because it's the safest thing for everybody involved is, hey, would you mind going to Home Depot? They don't actually need anything from Home Depot. You know, they send me, it's actually a list that they're getting for some home project. It's just like it gets me off the property. When we built this building, I went to Home Depot a lot. And then I would come back and they're like, no, that's not what we sent you for. And I'm like, oh, no, no, that's not it. So, yeah. But I would run to Home Depot over and over when we were finishing this building. And about half the time, the stuff I got would work, and the other half, they'd send me back. And I'd go back over to Home Depot and say, the wrong part. But anyway, yeah, so construction's not my thing. I don't know what my thing is, but that's not my thing, yeah. Building's not my thing. Joy once said to me, my mother-in-law once said, something came up about me fixing something, and she said, Daniel doesn't fix things, he preaches. That's what she told them. And it's a great long-time quote from my mother-in-law. He doesn't fix things, he preaches. And so I guess that may be an indictment on the preaching, because it doesn't fix anything either, but yeah. Anyway, well, it is so good to see you guys this morning. I hope you're well. We got a couple of people not doing well health-wise, or not awful. Like I think they're going to make full recoveries and everything, but they're just got a couple hospital things going on, and so Morgan's in the hospital, praying for him and his recovery. We got another person in the hospital, praying for them, their recovery, and I think both of those situations are going to be fine. But it's just a tough time of year to wind up not feeling well, tough time of year to wind up in the hospital for several days. And so that's no good. I don't know that there's a good time of year to do it, but this is especially tough. Feels like to me, right? I mean, what's that? Whose birthday? Oh, that's right. He's missing his son's birthday. His plan was to get out in time for his son's birthday, but I don't think that's not going to work out for him. I think he's not going to get out till, end of this week at best. So anyway, yeah, I'll be praying for them, and he's such a great guy, and just sorry that they're having to walk through that path. Yeah. Well, by the way, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm so glad I did that surgery. I was going to swim Friday. But I was a little stiff, like my back was a little stiff, so I got on the floor to just stretch out before going. And I started stretching out a little bit. I was like, man, that hurts right there, or that's a little tight right there. So I told Kim, I said, I think I'm just going to elliptical again. She was going to elliptical while I swam, and she hates that. She wants us to elliptical. We have this deal. This is the funniest thing ever. We have this deal that she'll elliptical for 30 minutes as long as I can talk to her for 30 minutes. So I'll come home, and she's like, well, I start asking me questions. I'm not telling you. She's like, why? I said, I've got to store this up So then we get to Lifetime. I have stuff to talk about on the elliptical to keep you going for 30 minutes. Because she'll get to about 20 minutes, and I've been talking, and I take a pause, and she's like, you better keep talking because I'm about to quit this thing. So I'm under a lot of pressure to keep the conversation going. So I'll store up stuff. I'm like, okay, these are 3 things I can talk about. And here's the deal. She doesn't really reciprocate. Like, she doesn't talk back to keep me going, because I could go, I could be on the elliptical for an hour, no problem. Listen to Christian music, praise and worship music or whatever. That's like no big deal. But she hates it, but she does it because she knows it's the right thing to do, but she's also trying to encourage me. But she's just like, hey, you got to keep the conversation going, which is hilarious. So she gives me a hard time about it. But I try to store this up. Now, Lifetime has all these TVs too, so this is funny. I cannot, this won't work. I cannot talk about anything on the TVs though. Like, I can't go, oh, look, there's a football game, whatever. She's like, she don't want to talk about that. It's got to be personal. So I store up stuff all day long and then go, okay, what are we going to talk about tonight? And I'll have an agenda, like, okay, here are my 3 main talking points. And then we'll get the 30 minutes done. And the other thing too is I'm like right mid-sentence. This is the other thing that's hilarious about this. This is so funny. So I've got all this stuff stored up, and I'm really going. I've got really good content here. I'd saved all this up. And then she gets to the 30-minute mark. I'm mid-sentence. She gets off the machine. I'm like, I'm still talking here. She's like, 30 minutes, that's it. Like, you can finish that story in the car on the way home. Now, she'll let me finish my workout. If I go, man, I need 3 more minutes to get to, 350 calorie burn or something like that. She's like, that's fine. She doesn't mind waiting a couple of minutes. But she doesn't actually mind waiting on me. Like, if I go swim, she'll wait on me. The one thing she doesn't want to do is be on that elliptical without me telling stories. So anyway, we have a lot of fun with it. And since our kids are at this age now where we mostly ignore them, it's great. Like, we can just go over to... and we just go over and work out at Lifetime and hang out, and so it's fun. It's fun, I guess, as long as you have a story to tell. It's fun, yeah. So, well, she will. She'll ask me. Like, if I run out of content, I'll this Sunday I was thinking about, and she'll hear me out on that. But really, she just wants to talk about personal stuff, though, not shop. So she doesn't want me to analyze the state of healthcare, or she doesn't want to analyze the state of my preaching. So it's tough. It's got to be personal. It's got to be what happened at church, and what happened in staff today, and we had a staff meeting or whatever. What's going on? Yeah, I can talk about baseball, but it's capped. She'll cap me. She's cool with it, but about 10 minutes into baseball talk, like with the baseball team, she's out. So, and right now we're not even practicing, so I don't have a lot to talk about with her anyway over that. We haven't practiced since before Thanksgiving, so there's not a lot to talk about there. So yeah, it's so stressful for a guy who's capped at the number of words we can say every day, right? I don't know. I'm not a conversationalist. Yeah. Seems weird since I make a living talking. But I'm not a conversationalist. So anyway, all right, enough of that nonsense. But so I hope you're well. I hope your elliptical days are going well too. So yeah. All right, well, Revelation chapter 17 is our text. We're going to read 17:1-18. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying, "Come here, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who sits on many waters." Now, I didn't mention this in the sermon this morning. We talked about world and the use of the word world, cosmos, as a theological, philosophical construct. But this woman, this prostitute, she represents this world system. She is in many ways, she's not a person per se. She sits on many waters, and she's over the 7 king. Like, she has this sway, this influence over the whole system, but she doesn't seem to be a person per se. She seems to be more the city and a concept and the system behind it than individual persons. So she's not the beast, she's not the Antichrist, she's not the Antichrist minion, she's not the kings that give authority to the beast, she's not the 7 mountains or the 7 kingdoms. She's all of them, like together in a system, is what it feels like. All right. And it says this, with whom the kings of earth committed acts of sexual immorality, and those who live on the earth became drunk with the wine of her sexual immorality. So she's using sin, or she's like the influence of sin on them. And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 thorns. So she's like over all, the beast, the 7 heads, the 10 horns. She's over all of them. Then the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, adorned with gold, precious stones and pearls, holding in her hand a cup full of abominations and of the unclean things of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead a name was written, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. So she's the mother of Babylon the Great and all the abominations of the earth. So she's like I said, it's more like a system, more like the world, the corrupt world. And meaning this corrupt system is almost like a living thing, because they're coming from her. It almost has this almost feel of a living organism type thing. Sounds like a bad sci-fi movie or something, I don't know, but just like this whole corrupt system involved. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints. So that's also part of the system, is the persecution of the church and of Israel. And with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. When I saw her, I wondered greatly. And the angel said to me, why do you wonder? I tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast who carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 thorns. So we're going to find out about the details of this. So you can imagine John in his vision, he sees this woman. She got all these blasphemous names. She's got these buckets of immorality. She's riding on the beast, has influence on the 7 and the 10. There's the city Babylon and also the whole corrupt system. And he sees all this. And this beast is the same beast. I'll show you from chapter 13. So this is not a new beast and not a new system, not a new situation. It's really like details of chapter 13 and the emergence of the beast. This is kind of like the final detailed specifics of that beast, and that we're getting in chapter 17 and its final destruction. Chapter 13, we get introduced to the beast. We get all these things about the beast, the influence, all that kind of stuff. The whole world follows after. And so now we're going to get like the destruction of that beast. And so this whole vision, and so John is going, okay, I remember the beast, and I remember the horns and all that, but who is this woman and what's going on here, okay? And so John asks questions, and the angel's going to give answers. He says, the beast you saw was and is not and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to destruction. So what the meaning of that is complicated, but he was, is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and then go to destruction. So, and those who live on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will wonder when they see the beast that he was lost and is not and will come. Osborne notes that the beast, that the devil, the dragon, seems to want the beast to mimic Jesus. Remember the triune nature of the beast, the dragon, the devil, and the beast, and then the minion, the priest minion, the unholy trinity? That the second member of the unholy trinity, this beast, the object of worship of the whole world, is an antichrist type figure. And the antichrist type figure, it seems as though the goal here from the dragon is to have that beast die and come back. To die and come back. That there's some kind of mortal wound, dies and comes back. Now, some people speculate on this, by the way, that Nero's the person in mind here, because there was this legend about Nero that he died and came back to life. The only thing about that legend is Nero died and didn't come back to life. So it didn't actually work out for Nero. Turned out when Nero died, there was no divine resurrection for that loser. So, yeah, that's harsh. That's harsh. But I think 2,000 years allows me to be somewhat critical of the guy without seeming too judgmental. I don't know. 2,000 years has passed, so if I tell you he's kind of a loser, I think it's okay. I don't know. It's harsh, I know. But it's not personal. It's not personal. I didn't know him personally. So here's the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads, so he's explaining all this. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. By the way, there's 7 mountains that surround the city of Rome. This has been part of, this is Rome. It's clearly Rome. The 10 kings, again, this is talking about these regional kings. It could have something to do with the Roman Empire at that time. But I'm reading Osborne. He gives 7 possible solutions to this, by the way. 7 possible solutions to this. Some involve actual emperors. Some involve kingdoms. I've already shown you these things. I'm not going to do it again. But just letting you know, there are 7 possible interpretations of this. And they come from all over the map. I mean, like, the first 4 had to do with emperors at that time. Nero, Vespasian, or Domitian. Other people did some other history. Other people were like, it's these 7 kingdoms. Other people was like, this is all symbolic. I don't know. By the time you're done reading that section, it's 2 pages of speculation. And I got done reading it going, oh boy, this is hard. This is hard. So I'm just letting you go, this is hard text. In case you didn't notice, this is a hard text out of the Bible. You might have noticed that already, but all right. So the 7 heads are 7 mountains upon which the woman sits. So they talk about this like the Roman pagan immorality culture is the woman, and the 7 mountains are the Roman history of the founding of Rome and its history since then. And there are 7, and they are 7 kings. That's the only thing about the 7 mountains around Rome. There's no reference to 7 kings with that legend, so I don't know. And also 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. And when he comes, he will remain for just a little while. Again, this is back to, is this Nero? Is this, all these people and all speculation. All right. Now, verse 11. The beast which was and is not is himself an 8th and is one of the 7, and he goes to destruction. So he was, is not, and is himself again. This is this idea that Osborne says. This is this idea of the one that suffered the fatal wound but came back to life, has this kind of resurrection type idea to it. Now, how the devil pulls this off, I don't know. Don't know. How this is, what this is referring to exactly, I don't know. But it seems like the dragon is the one that allows or causes the fatal wound, or allows the fatal wound to take place, and then brings this Antichrist type creature back from the dead. It's a Christological parallel where, like Jesus was wounded and died and was risen, so it is with this beast. Ooh, that's uncanny. And it's almost the devil's way of mocking while also causing deception through this. Like, I can do a resurrection too. Big deal, God. And it's almost like the devil's intentionally mocking. You probably worked through this too in your mind. Like, what is the motive for the devil for all of this? I mean, I could get some motive, but it does seem like, does the devil know for sure he's defeated? Or does he think there's a chance? If he thinks there's a chance, this makes more sense to me. If not, it's just like, well, I'm miserable. I might as well make everyone else miserable. Yeah, Paul. Sure. It minimizes Jesus. It kind of minimizes Jesus in that regard. The Trinity, we can pull that off. The resurrection, we can pull that off. Like you're saying, like minimizing those things. It is a lot of effort on his part. Yeah. So it does make me wonder, does the devil think somewhere in the back of his crooked mind that there's still a chance here that he can somehow pull this off? I don't know. Surely not. I assume he read the end of the book. He seems to know the Bible really well. He quoted it to Jesus, so I don't think he's unaware. But like you said, the best he can do, if he can't win, is to at least minimize, mimic, mock, reduce what Jesus has done, what God the Father and the Spirit have done with reference to the Son's death and resurrection and those kinds of things. So, so the beast is both the seventh and the eighth. I think he dies and comes back, and it's like, well, the kingdom gets restored to him somehow. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. These have one purpose. They give their power and authority to the beast. These will wage war against the Lamb. And so this is the whole point of chapter 17. We already know about the beast. We already know about a lot of these details. We know about the one horn that suffers a fatal wound, comes back to life. Everything's handed over to him. He's the Antichrist. We know about the 10 horns kind of giving authority to this one horn, all those kinds of things. He is one a kingdom, and he's kind of a new kingdom because he dies and comes back from the dead. I think it's all the same imagery. I'm going to show you the verses from Revelation 13 because that happened like 10 months ago, so you probably don't remember it. But I'm just saying, like, it's similar. And it says, the Lamb overcome them because he is the Lord of lords and King of kings. So chapter 17 is actually not as much about the beast, but about the victory of Jesus over the beast. Like, this is how this is going to end. That's why I asked the thing about Satan. Like, does he still think he's going to win? Because this looks like it's not going to work out for him. I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm guessing that the devil doesn't like the way this ends. Fair? Yeah, I mean, just kind of speculating here, but I suspect that the devil, this is deep theology this morning, but that the way this ends, that the devil doesn't like it, is my speculation. Neither does the Antichrist, and neither does these 10 kings and the Babylon, this city that represents like the source of spiritual and moral corruption throughout the world. None of them are going to like the outcome. But the overcoming is because this is why he overcomes. He is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are the called and chosen and faithful. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. So that's why I'm saying, like, this is a corrupt system. And she's the source of this corrupt system. I don't think she's a person, though. I think it's more the idea, the fallen world. And then it says this, and the 10 horns which you saw and the beast, these will hate the prostitute and will make her desolate and naked and will eat her flesh and will burn her up with fire. So that's doesn't seem like a person. You know, again, this is like the destruction of Babylon because it says, for God has put in their hearts to execute his purpose for having a common purpose and by giving their kingdom to the beast until the words of God will be fulfilled. The woman who you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of earth. So Babylon is like this system, this corrupt system, but at the very end, they're going to wind up, the evil will eat each other at the end. Like, these kings we're not going to fight with power over this influence. We want that influence. And so there's some kind of destruction there that's God ordains it. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, sitting in, right. Yeah, thanks for asking. Like reigning, sitting in rain. And the water she's sitting on is not real waters, it's people and nations and language. So every language on the whole world has fallen under this influence. But in the end, God is going to judge that by using these evil kings and this one specific Antichrist beast. He's going to put in their heart to destroy her, and then he's going to destroy them. You know what it reminds me of? You remember when God uses Assyria to judge Israel and goes, I'm going to get the Babylonians, though, to judge them. And then says, and the Babylonians I'm going to use to judge Judah and Assyria. And then I'm going to get another kingdom to judge them, right? Medo-Persians to judge them. And so God has done this in the past where I'm going to take an evil empire and judge another evil empire by them. Because in Jeremiah, it's like, these Babylonians are kind of bad dudes. What happens with them is like, well, eventually they're going to get judged too. Yeah. So this history of using another evil empire to judge another evil empire is not new. So this system, this corrupt system, seems like it's been going for a while. And as the Antichrist takes authority, he brings an end to that corrupt system at the will of God to do it. Like he puts it in their hearts, like we got to destroy this thing. And then they get destroyed by Christ as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So, yeah. Simple enough, right? All right, so just a few things. We'll come back and kind of focus in on just a couple things, all right? So here's the mind which has wisdom. So this is where the angel's explaining to John, here's what all this means. So here's the mind that has wisdom means, here's a clear mind that understands these things. Let me tell you what they are, okay? So the 7 heads are 7 mountains upon which the woman sits, and they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain a little while. Now, some people have speculated on this woman, by the way, that this is Nero's mom, Agrippina. Now, she is a terrible human being. She marries Claudius and gets Claudius to adopt Nero. Then, when Claudius' son is about to be old enough to be king, she kills Claudius so that Nero can become king. She poisons him. Then Nero and her poison Claudius's biological son and kill him. And then Nero, who's tired of Agrippina trying to manipulate him all the time, kills her. And so you can see why people would put all this together. Because they're like, she's this very corrupt influence. She uses sexual immorality she gets Claudius to divorce his wife. They kill her too. Agrippina marries Claudius. She's apparently using sexual immorality to influence him. She uses sexual immorality to influence other people as well. She is trying to influence Nero, but at some point he finally says, I've had enough. And so some people are like, Nero's the Antichrist. He kills Agrippina. She's this woman who both in reality is a woman, but also the cumulative actions of her kind of represents the fallen world. And so some people have tried to connect those dots and go, she's at least emblematic of this person in her work. And so when people try to associate Nero as this Antichrist type figure, they're always like, yeah, look at Agrippina. She's perfect for this because she kills off the 5th emperor. Nero's the 6th, and then when Nero dies, Otho reigns for a couple hundred days, and then he's dead. Agrippina didn't have anything to do with it. She was already dead. But so some people have tried to, say, well, look, this fits perfectly with that pattern. If that makes Nero the 6th emperor, you have to start counting at Augustus and not at Julius Caesar. So that makes that counting a little dicey. So there's that. Nero does fit the mold of being, this emperor had this legend about he would come back from the dead after his death. He just didn't ever do it, so it doesn't quite fit. But so some people have tried to connect these dots, and I'm not saying it's ridiculous. And I've studied Agrippina and Nero pretty extensively. I have a technical 200-page or so historical analysis of Nero. It was someone's PhD dissertation from a secular university. I want to say Michigan. Someone there. And I bought it because I was writing a paper that I needed that on. So I read this book on Nero. And it's not a popular book. It was there's deep references. There's all these cross references. It's hard read, slugging through it. But anyway, so I read through that, and I got a pretty good feel for some of these things. And it's depressing, actually, more than anything, just how corrupt everyone is in that whole system. But so some people have tried to connect it to that. I'm making the case that I think this is future, and what Nero and Agrippina and the emperors and all these other things are prototypes of the ultimate end. That's why I say I'm a typological preterist, meaning John wrote about stuff that's yet future using imagery that fit really well with his own times and his own understanding. And that's why God reveals it to him that way, because these are things he could understand. These are things he could understand. Seeing the future, but in terms he could understand. Now, some of it he can't understand because we get fire-breathing horses and stuff that are, and scorpions stinging people. I don't think John was walking around like, well, that makes complete sense. But I'm just saying that some of the history here, if you go, wow, it seems a lot like the Roman Empire. It's like a little bit like it. Yeah, there's a lot of parallels here, not perfectly. And John would have been familiar with some of these things, for sure. So when he gets his revelation, I'm not surprised he doesn't get it in terms that he can understand. By the way, this is the same true for other prophecies. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Daniel, they get Hosea, they get prophecy in ways they can comprehend, with their own time and space and culture, their own agricultural world, their own cities they lived in. So they get future revelation over things they can wrap their minds around. Yeah, Chris.
Daniel, isn't there basically a history of almost every generation saying this applies to us, and then they take these images and they say, well, it aligns to this, like, this blackbird in the sky or something.
Sure.
Well, that's a B-1 bomber.
Right, sure. Sure, yeah, we definitely saw it during Nazi Germany, of course, too. Like it really got identified as, man, I think this is end time stuff. But it's not unique to that experience. World War I got a lot of this kind of language. World War II had a ton of this kind of language. And so this is not uncommon for people to try to parallel this with their own age. And it's also not uncommon for people to try to perfectly parallel it with John's age, to go back and preterism and try to, or post-millennialism and try to parallel it with John's age. Not a bad effort. I think it's worth it. I think it's just when I tell you there are 7 different theories on it, then you go, man, it's not that clear, is it? You go, no, it's not. Now, maybe it was clear to John, and maybe it's clear to his readers, but to us 2,000 years later, it's not so clear. And to me, that seems weird, because the first coming of Jesus is fairly clear as to how it fit the Old Testament prophecies about him. I don't think there's a lot of intrigue, like, well, wait, was he really born in Bethlehem? Maybe that's just symbolic. No, it's like, no, he's born in Bethlehem. So was he really born a virgin? Yeah, he was born of a virgin. So yes, it's explicit. It's right there. So we don't have the ambiguities with that. It would be weird to me that if preterism works, that these things happen, and the early church fathers within a generation of those events can't identify them and don't identify them. That seems weird to me. Because if the first coming, you get the entire New Testament says all of these things are fulfillment of these things about the first advent. Look how well they fulfilled them. The second advent's actually occurred, and all the early church fathers, none of them can identify it. To me, that's problematic for preterism. I've always said that. Doesn't mean preterism's false. I just think it's a problem. Premillennialism has its own set of problems too. So they both do. They both have some challenges, okay? I've told you over and over, premillennialism's challenge is they ignored the significance of 70 AD. I think that's a problem. 70 AD is a real thing. And 70 AD is part of the Olivet Discourse and the predictions by Jesus. Can't ignore the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. So both groups have their challenges. Yeah, for sure. All right. Now, these 7 heads and all that, and the 7 kings and the 7 mountains. Back in Revelation 13, we see this. The dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. This is where the dragon's got 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 crowns, and on his heads were blasphemous names. So see that we have the 7 and the 10 again, right? So I don't think there's a new 7 and new 10. So Revelation 13 is the introduction of the Antichrist and the beast and the dragon. Revelation 17 is the destruction of that group, but the fact that God uses them first to destroy this corrupt worldwide system of Babylon, he gets them to do that, and then he destroys them. So I think it's the same beast. Same beast. It's not a new beast. And it's the same event, it's just the end of that event, not the beginning of it. This is the beginning. The beast comes out, we have all this control over the world, the trade is involved, worship is involved with the beast. He gets this little minion priest to get involved, so you have this triune, the unholy triune of the dragon, the beast, and this little minion. But the beast here in Revelation 13 bears these same resemblance of Revelation 17. They parallel each other. So it's not a second beast or anything like this. Same dude. And it says this, I saw on his heads as if it had been one of his heads as if fatally wounded, and the fatally wound was healed. The word fatal there the fatal wound matches the wounds referring that John saw on Jesus when he sees him as one, the lamb of which had been slain. So again, this mimicking taking place there. All right, so the beast is this whole kingdom. The Antichrist is in particular is the one king in that kingdom that dies and comes back from the dead and has been given all authority by all the other kings. So the beast is the whole set, but the Antichrist is the primary voice leader of that whole thing. And everyone bows to him and the whole world follows after him. We find all this information about all this, and then we get to chapter 17. It's like, hey, this whole thing's going to come to an end. But before it comes to an end for the beast and this Antichrist type figure, before it does, just so you know, God's going to take them and use them to actually destroy Babylon and the corrupt world system. So the evil are going to eat each other in the process. All right? So it says that the whole world was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. They worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast and who is able to wage war with him? Revelation 17 is the answer to this question. Right? Revelation 17 is the answer to the question. King of kings and Lord of lords, Jesus Christ is the one who's able to wage war with him. But it's not till 17 that we get that answer. It's not till Revelation 17 we get that answer where it's like, well, I'll tell you who can wage war with the beast. His name's Jesus, and he's going to put a quick end to this evil beast. All right, and so a mouth was given to him speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, authority to act for 42 months. So this is the beginning of the 42 months. The end of the 42 months, the beast destroys Babylon the Great and the wickedness associated with that whole system, and then itself gets destroyed. Yeah. Complicated, huh? All right. So 42 months was given to him, and he opened his mouth and blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So in Revelation 17, here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains upon which the woman sits, and they are the 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 has not yet come. When he comes, he will remain a little while. The beast, which was and is not, is himself an 8th and is the one of the 7. It's very confusing, but I think the reason he's a 7th and an 8th is he dies and this one leader out of that group dies and comes back from the dead. It's kind of like, that's a new kingdom, maybe, something like that, right? And so I guess if Nero had died and come back from the dead, they would have made him the 7th and the 8th emperor of Rome, something like that. Yes, Paul. Yeah, some people say the person dies and comes back. Other people are like, wow, how'd they survive this fatal wound that would have normally killed someone? We don't know for sure. Yeah. Either way, it's miraculous enough for the world to be impressed. Yeah. Again, which is weird. This is why Nero doesn't really fit for me, because Nero killed himself. And he killed himself with no one. The Roman Senate celebrated. Nobody was amazed by it. They were happy. Like, good, that guy's a loser, spent all his time in Athens. So they were happy about it, which seems weird. This seems like, to me, the world is pretty devastated over this. Yeah. I think he poisoned himself, right? Isn't that how Nero poisoned himself? Right. But But some people are saying, well, John's just drawing on the legend of Nero at that time, that he was going to come back from the dead. And because Nero's the end of the Julian-Claudian line, which is why people are like, he'll come back from the dead. Like Julius Caesar reincarnated and they raised Nero. Because there were people out there who really didn't like the end of the Julian-Claudian line. Like it would be like when Henry VIII died, handing it over to someone who wasn't in the line. And even if the Brits didn't particularly like Henry VIII, we saw this with Bloody Mary, that when Edward died, they tried to put Anne, I forgot her name. She reigned for 17 days, and then they cut her head off at the Tower of London. And by the way, one of the most powerful statements ever was her statement at execution about her faith in Jesus in all of this. She didn't want to be involved in this. She got pulled into it, but she was like a second cousin. And the Brits didn't like it because Queen Mary was directly in line. She was the daughter of Henry VIII. They're like, no, we can't be pulling in second cousins in here. His daughter's alive. She's a bad human, but it doesn't matter. She's next in line. Well, there were some people in Rome kind of like that with Nero. Like, he's a bad human, but he's from the line of Julius Caesar. What are we doing here? And so there were some people who were like, this legend developed out of that. Like, oh, no, we're not ending this Otho guy, whatever, he's not going to replace the Julian-Claudian line. He's not, because the Senate after Nero went, no more nepotism, or no more, hiring your own family members. Is that nepotism? Yeah, no more nepotism. We need whoever's most qualified. And so when Nero died, they went, okay, obsession over the genetic link is a bad idea. These guys are idiots. So that's when they killed that. And so some people are like, no, he's going to come back from the dead so we can restore the Claudian-Julian line. And so some people are like, I think that's what John's referring to here if he wrote this in 68 AD. Except for Nero didn't come back from the dead, which would make this a false statement by John. And I'm not a big fan of that idea because I think John wrote the Word of God. And if it's the Word of God, it wouldn't miss on that. So I don't like that theory because Nero didn't come back from the dead. All right. Just an Osborne quote. I have to throw them in periodically because I read stuff and go, well, that's a good quote. And I wouldn't have come up with it on my own. So I'm going to share it with you. So, and just know, if I say anything profound, you guys all know, you should think to yourself, wow, that was a pretty good quote. I'm shocked. I wonder where Daniel got that. So that's true of every sermon. I don't footnote every single thing. I've heard preachers getting in trouble for plagiarizing stuff. And then I listen to it and go, okay, yeah, they got it from someone else. You know what that preacher would say? I'm glad you're using it. Like, I'm not going to footnote every single thing. I try to when it's like direct quote, and I try to put it on there and give credit. I'm just letting you know, I just tell you this all the time. If I say anything profound, I'm telling you up front, I didn't come up with it. It's not my idea. I'm not smart enough to do that. I'm reading other people. Sometimes I footnote it and give them, attribution. Sometimes I'm just right in the middle of the sermon. It comes to my mind. I just move on. And you go, well, you didn't footnote. Yeah, because I couldn't remember where I read it. Okay? It came to the top of my head. I couldn't remember where I got it from. If you came to me later and say, that quote sounded familiar, I'd go, yeah, it sounded familiar to me too. I think that's Chuck Swindoll, but it might have been Alistair Begg, or maybe John MacArthur, or R.C. Sproul, or Francis Chan, or Tony Evans, or some of the other people I listen to on a regular basis. So I don't know, but if I say something profound, it didn't come from me. But sometimes I'm going to read something profound and give attribution, which is what this is. Okay, so thus there are four groups: the Antichrist, the earth dwellers who worship him, the 10 kings who give their total support, and the rest of the kings of the earth who join their coalition. So we have this coalition of rulers. And it's weird because they turned their hatred on the church in Israel, but they also wind up turning their hatred on the corrupt Babylonian world system. It's kind of weird. God uses them. Like he goes, whoop, we're going to have you go do my task here. And then these will wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them because he is the Lord of lords, King of kings. And those who are with him the called and the chosen, the faithful. And so then we find out it's like, okay, waging war against them, but they're also going to now be used by God to wage war against this Babylonian city and this lady. Osborne says this: the reason for this final victory is that the Lamb, not the Antichrist, is the Lord of Lords and King of Kings. So I might have thought of something like that on my own too, but I thought Osborne said it well, so I just typed it up. All right, we're out of time. It's such simple material. It's perfect for the Christmas season too. It just screams Bethlehem and shepherds and wise men. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is the problem with you do the next verse. I remember one time I was teaching the book of Ephesians. So for Mother's Day, I preached on do not be drunk with wine. That it's like, what is wrong with you, preacher? Did you ever read a Hallmark card in your life? Like, I know, but it was the next verse. Yeah, so, and then the following year for Mother's Day, it was Jesus casting out the demons into the herd of swine. So, like 2 Mother's Days in a row, people are like, can't you at least make an attempt to make it something related? It's like, no, it's the next verse. It's the next verse. So, yeah, sorry about that. I know. This is what happens when you get a mathematician and you turn them loose pastoring the church for 23 years. You go, he teaches the Bible the way he teaches algebra or calculus. What's the next problem? We do the next problem. You can't go to the next problem until we've done this problem. You have to do every problem. You have to work them all. So, yeah. All right. Can't solve them all. Unlike my calculus class, I can probably work every problem in that book. I feel fairly confident that I could work all those problems. But Book of Revelation, way harder than calculus. Way harder, yeah. All right. So we'll come back and we'll pick up on the rest of 7. I think we're about ready to move into 18 too. We've covered this stuff pretty extensively. So Richard did a great job setting it up. We've covered the last few weeks on it. I think we're ready now to launch into 18. 18 will be the destruction of Babylon, where the use of these kings and this Antichrist beast to destroy Babylon, we get some details on it. And yeah, it's pretty graphic actually. Like there's details about just it's torched the ground, and yeah, there's some details here we get into. And then chapter 19 is the great hallelujahs, where the whole heaven and earth celebrate over the destruction of Babylon the Great. So this world system coming to an end. So similar to what we talked about in the sermon this morning. So those of you who are at 8:30, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who are at 11, you'll have to sit through it at that point. But anyway, all right. Well, let's pray together. God, you are gracious and kind. Help us as we study these scriptures to understand and know them better. Father, in all cases, please prepare our hearts for whatever challenges we face. This world is corrupt and broken, and our only hope ultimately is by faith in Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Because you are King of Kings and Lord of Lords, you reign forever, Lord Jesus. You have a kingdom that will never fail. You are righteous and just. You are also gracious and kind. Not only are you the Lion of Judah, you are also the Lamb that was slain. And the beauty of both, your incredible power and your gracious allowing of yourself to be weak on our behalf. Lord, we praise you for that, and we put our trust completely in you. Amen. All right, you guys are awesome. Come back for the next week of Near Christmas Bible study to talk about Babylon being burned to the ground at the end times. Yeah. It's perfect. Yeah, it makes you want to write Christmas cards, when you get home. That would be hilarious, you send out Christmas cards with quotes from the book of Revelation,